Welcome back to our four-part series of We're Here at the 5 Minute Career Hack. We are having the pleasure of interviewing influential women in our lives that have played a fantastic part in history today and we know in the future. So we're going to get their take. You're going to be in for a treat to hear about our lovely guest this week and all the things that matter to her. But before we get into or go any further, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Regina to introduce herself. So, Regina, tell the people about you. Who are you?
Hello, Alicia, my bestie. It's so good to see you today.
Good to see you.
And I'm really excited to be on this chat. As Alicia said, my name is Regina Lane, and a little bit about me. I think it's important to know I'm a mom, and momming right now during this pandemic has been top priority for me. I'm a wife and a newlywed. On top of that,
Congratulations.
oh my gosh, 5, 6, 7 months, 7 months of marriage, and marriage number 2 for me. On top of that, and I work in administration, but I am making a shift. I'm really, literally, right in the middle of uh, as they call it, the Great Resignation. So I'm shifting from school administration and entrepreneurship, and now I'm stepping into corporate America um, um, in a new position as a Chief Idea Officer, which is an acronym for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Access.
I'm so excited. That's why we had to talk because it's been so exciting to see all of this, to your point, through the pandemic of what
Yeah.
has come about with motherhood, has come about with finding love again, and then also you just kind of setting out of with some career goals. I think you're somebody that is always goal oriented and
Yeah.
been very clear on what you want to do. But I think also someone in my life that I see definitely outwardly, right? Balancing it all. And then what I appreciate in our friendship is you being very transparent about what that looks like. So let's expound a little bit more on your career. So let's I know you kind of gave an overview, but if you want to kind of just walk us through the journey, because I think,
Absolutely.
when you think about from like your education, maybe share some, early interests of yourself, kind of how do you like looking back on it, I'm sure it's very refreshing, but let's dig in a little bit deeper with that.
Yeah, so I majored in my bachelor's degree is in musical theater. So fine arts. So I was the kid that was wearing dance tights and a backpack every day and leotard. But that was my love at that time. I loved being in the theater and being able to sing, dance, and act, do all three. I was the first Black to graduate from the musical theater program at the University of Oklahoma, which it's crazy to be saying that. I think
In
I graduated
2002.
college. Yeah. I wasn't the first Black in the program, but I was the second in the program, but the first to graduate. So, um, went on, continued to do theater and dance, focused a lot on that until I had an injury. But during that time that I was dancing, I also got my master's degree in administrative leadership. It's interesting how things have come together now in my fully fleshed out adult life. So after the injury, I wasn't able to dance anymore, but my love for theater remained. So now I own a theatrical production company called The Vanguard, and we focus on really telling African American stories and making a space for African American artists here in Oklahoma. We're hoping to be a nonprofit by the end of the year.
That's
Uh,
exciting.
yeah, it is, and it's a journey, finding a board and getting all of that in place. Um, and then on the administrative side, I've always had a love. So I love creating. If you haven't picked up on that, um, and I've started off with graphic design, creating stationery, and that really grew into a full service marketing agency with employees. And that was scary. Like having, I think at the most we had at one time was 9 employees.
Wow.
Uh, and I thought I was really doing something too.
You were
My
though. You were impacting 9 people's life. Like that's huge.
It is. It feels like you are holding people's lives in your hands because this is how they pay their bills. This is how they feed their families. And I hadn't planned on it, but it was very homogenous at one point. Black female employees, with the exception of one white male who was our web developer. So I'm in a place now where I'm ready to close that business. I'm actually discussing with a potential buyer for the business, so that's an interesting journey as well. And stepping into corporate America. So I did do some time in education administration, working to plug in students with the community. And that's where a lot of my diversity and inclusion experience has come from. And then just being plugged into the community as well. I've always been someone who is active on boards and committees and whatnot just to make Oklahoma City a better community.
Yeah,
So
where do you think the community involvement comes from? Because you have had a very diverse experience there as well. So, like, how have you kind of found yourself in the different boards and groups that you impact today?
it's very, very important to me to have a say in what my community looks like instead of just living here. I want to
Mm,
be a participant. I raise my girls to be the same way as well. They sit on team boards as well. And boards are a really great way to get plugged in to the community and really have a say. So it's cool to serve and really see. I like serving on boards that where you have to get your hands dirty
mhm.
and you're not just a name on some letterhead. So most of those tend to be newer boards or boards that are very active. I was honored a couple of years ago to get a call from my mayor and say, Regina, we love the work that you're doing in the community. We would absolutely love for you to serve on the Myriad Gardens board, which was huge because at the time we were developing our central park,
Mm.
which is Scissortail Park. And so they just finished phase one and we're going into phase two now. And I get to be a part of that and know what's going on and have a say and really put the word out there to the community and say, hey, come to Myriad Gardens, come to Scissortail Park and see what we're doing. Um, so that was an honor. You hear people on the news talk about, when the president calls them to serve and how, you just
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
like honored to do that. Like you feel obliged. And no, Mayor Holt is not the president of the United States of America, but he's the mayor of our city. And for him to say, "I need you to serve," I felt compelled to do so, and I feel honored to be on the board there.
Awesome, awesome. So, what do you feel like you've learned in, all of these efforts? Like when you, to your point, obviously the hard place comes from you wanting to impact where you are, but what do you feel like the biggest lesson has been through the different service opportunities you've been provided?
Honestly, every person makes a difference. Some people feel like, what's the point in serving on the board? Like, what's my time commitment? That's everybody's number one question. What's the time commitment? Um, and most boards, on average, are going to meet once a month. That's
Or bi-monthly, right? Yeah.
or bi-monthly.
Hmm.
Yeah. So you got a 1 or 2 hour commitment there. Um, you may serve on a committee. Let's say tops, you're doing 3 to 5 hours a month, which will be on the heavy end,
Hmm.
right? That turns into at most 60 hours a year. And to know that you get to have an impact, I think too many people count themselves out. It's almost like voting. Like you don't want to vote, but you want to complain. There are so many opportunities to serve in the community, right? Wherever you are, be it rural or urban, there are so many opportunities to serve, and I'm not paid for any of my board memberships. I mean, that's something you can definitely work your way up and toward. But the opportunity to make an impact in your community, I think everyone should take it, and too many people take it for granted.
Yeah,
It's
I
not a
can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go
no,
ahead.
I think the reason why thank you so much for explaining and going through that, because I think two things come to mind, which I know we know being on these boards, right, is there's not many people that look like us. And I think,
Mhm.
especially now, why we want to have these conversations during Women's History Month. Obviously, we talk about equality a lot, but I think what I hear you saying and why I want to, for you to share your experience and your thought process is we hear a lot around lifting as you climb, right? And when we
Yes.
get into these spaces, it's so many things that are open up to your point, the direct impact, but then also the value of what your voice brings so that the people that come behind you can show up fully authentic, right? We can create exposure for, underrepresented groups in a way. And I think to your point, so many people want to but don't know how. So
Exactly.
yeah, what are you? So that's why I wanted to go there. So do you have any additional thoughts with that?
Yeah, there are, for instance, in Oklahoma City, there's an organization called Leadership Oklahoma City. It is leadership training for civic minded people. And they have two levels. They have loyal, which is for young adults ages like 21 through 36. And then they have the signature class for more seasoned adults. Plugging into an organization like that, it does have a cost, but when I tell you the floodgates open in terms of connection and opportunities, they have a running list of boards and corporations and commissions that are all looking for, they have empty spots.
Hmm.
People have a matrix that they need to fill. They're looking for somebody in your sector or line of business that will be able to bring that value. So if it's HR or finance or banking or marketing, in my instance, that's kind of been the draw for me, is bringing in marketing experience to these boards. And not only that, I represent a certain demographic. I am Black, I am female. Um, so, for example, the Myriad Gardens board, I'm the only Black person on the board. And I think I'm one of, at the time that I joined, it was 4 or 5 women. I know we've got some new members right now, so I'm not sure of the numbers there, but that makes a big impact. My voice has value in a space like that.
Hmm.
And so when you plug into one organization, they're going to open you up to other opportunities, like this running list of um, boards that are looking for people
Yeah, and
to serve.
and I think the other part, and I'm a big fan of Dr. Claude Anderson, right? And he talks about
Mhm.
powernomics, and I think we talk a lot about like wealth building and things like that, and generational wealth. And I think a lot of times, particularly in the Black community, we start at education, right? Instead of, to your point,
Mhm.
the community advocacy and the things you're saying creates that to continue and perpetuate. Because now, to your point, you're bringing business in for small
Yeah.
businesses or whatever that may look like so that we can create jobs and do those things. And sometimes people think that looks like a lot of money or grinding, and they forget
Mhm.
this very important step. So I appreciate your service here. And for anybody that's watching and wants to get plugged in, I know Regina is a huge advocate and her life's work. Once you see her bio and everybody sees, she definitely walks the walk. And that's why I was so excited for you to share this piece. But um, definitely agree with you. It's underestimated and definitely a need. So, but people don't know where to get started, right? So,
Well, and I just had a conversation. Somebody called me today, not even 3 hours ago, saying, "Hey, Regina, I'm looking to sort of break into like a new uh, pool of people.
mhm.
Um, go into these organizations that have events. They have their annual events. These nonprofits have annual events. Go into those, connecting with people there. And when you connect with some of these big organizations that bring in a lot of people from there, you will make so many connections and learn about more opportunities that are out there to serve.
Awesome. Well, let's move into, I know you mentioned your girls, so let's talk about motherhood and the role
Yeah.
that, you started first there, right? So I definitely want to create space because I know, mother is probably one of the first things that you shared that you wanted to do when we met as teenagers.
Oh my
So,
God.
you know what I mean? I remember it's like, I want to be
Yes.
a mom, and you definitely have done that and done it well. So, tell us about what motherhood has meant to you, and then also tell us about your girls.
Thank you. So I have 3 girls by birth. and 2 by fate, as I like to say. Um, so, 3 from my previous marriage. So my oldest is 19, have a brand new drum roll, 17-year-old, and have a 14-year-old, all girls. And then I've had the great honor of being a homestay mother for 2 international children, one from China who just turned 20 today.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah, so I got to FaceTime her earlier, and one who is also 17. So I had all 5 of them during the pandemic, which was a journey. So I love being a mom. It is the greatest honor of my life to be a mother. But when I tell you the truth, Alicia, look at me, I'm over here hitting my leg.
You know, it gets real when you hear those audibles. You're like, what is in the background, right? It is a punctuation, is
It's
what it is.
me
That's
right
what you hear.
here.
It's a punctuation.
Let me tell you, parenting through this pandemic has been heavy. It has,
Hmm.
I mean, there was no way to prepare for it. I mean, we're all going through this together
Hmm.
as a nation, as a global community. Um,
But I think
and
also
it's
you
been
have to.
hard.
But I think you also had different dynamics, especially with your homes, your students that were expatriates, like they were from a different
Yeah.
country, and then targeted right through this. So that was a whole nother
Oh,
element
absolutely.
to, you know what I mean, like this whole pandemic situation.
Absolutely. Like I even remember when the pandemic first started, um, my one of my I call her my Korean baby, but she was not feeling well. She was coughing. She was sick. She had a headache, and I was like, mm. So I said, we're gonna keep you home today. And she got to feeling better. Fever was gone. Headache was gone. This was after like 4 or 5 days, but she still had this nagging cough. And there were 2 more days left to school before spring break. And she was like, "But I'm feeling better. I don't have fever." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you're coughing. You are Asian, and if I hear the phrase Chinese flu one more time on the news, I'm gonna just go off." And I said, "Let's keep you home today. Let's just ride out this week." And then there was spring break, and who knew we
It's
would
just
not
like,
go back that semester? Yeah. So I absolutely did not want to put her in a situation where she had to endure any type of discrimination. And um, I wouldn't say that that was necessarily a hostile environment, but why chance it? I'm here. She's living with me. I am mommy on the ground. I'm not going to put my baby girl in a situation where she could be discriminated against,
mhm.
especially at that time. And we just saw it ramp up from there, just violence against Asians. Um, so, I had to keep that in mind. Had it been one of my babies, I probably would have been fine. Like, okay, dry cough, let's have some tea, a little honey, and cough drop. And I still did that for her, but we're not going to school today
Mhm.
because I don't want to have to burn the whole place down. If somebody come against you. And I say that in jest, but you try to protect these kids like they're yours,
Yeah.
and that's so that was tough making decisions like that. Trying to keep kids safe during this pandemic, especially at the height of it. They're sneaking out with friends or not wearing their mask properly, and I didn't know how my body would respond if I ended up getting the virus. I mean, it finally did make its way through our household,
Mhm.
and we all survived with no real lingering issues. But that was scary, especially when other people's kids' hands, other people's kids' lives in your hands. So, yeah, that was scary. It was stressful, and it was hard.
Yeah. So what do you feel like motherhood, I mean, as to your point, is something you aspire to be. What do you feel like the biggest lesson that you have learned?
Someone told this to me, and it has been the most true thing I've ever heard about motherhood. or just parenthood in general.
Yep.
And they said, your kids will humble you. Now, that doesn't mean much when you have a little baby
Yes.
and you just rocking them or
Or you think it's
nursing
going to
them.
sleep, or you think it's like being
Uh-huh.
tired. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. At that time, spit up on my shirt. Oh, my baby humbled me. No, when it changes the older they get. Um, it as as bright as you think your kids are, as talented as you think they are, as special as you think they are, and you could be 100% right. Your kids will humble you at some point. That you will just have to nod your head and be like, okay, Regina said it. And in my case, it was Miss Debbie. Miss Debbie told me my kids will humble me. And they have. And it just reminds you that they're human. They're gonna make mistakes. They're gonna make big mistakes.
Hmm.
And that's okay. It's my job, and I have the great honor again to love them through that. How do you love your child through their biggest mistakes?
Hmm.
Things that they did wrong that maybe they knew they were messing up, and that was a choice they made. Maybe it was on accident,
Hmm.
and we have an opportunity to show them what it looks like when they make mistakes, even as adults, um, and learn how to humble themselves and grow from those moments. So that's hard. It's tough, but I'm so glad I was prepared for that one because they will knock you down a couple pegs, as great as you think they are.
Yeah. And since, obviously this month we're focused on women because it's Women's History
Mhm.
Month, like what do you hope that, obviously having your oldest daughter in college, right? Soon to
Yeah.
have your middle there. What do you hope that your girls take from you as they move into the world? So like when you think about lessons and even lessons, because I know you do a lot of work with girls and moms, like how do you what do you let's first start what you want your girls to learn and go into the world with, and then how do you kind of coach and inspire other mothers in this space?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Alicia. I've been focused so much on um, pouring into my girls that they are capable, they are beautiful. They have so many messages all day long, subliminal messages, direct. Um, just even in passing, that are telling them they are not beautiful, they are
Mhm.
not capable, they're not good enough, they're not skinny enough, they're not fair skinned enough, their hair's not long enough. They have so many messages. You don't measure up. I see these, and even working in a school, I see so many young women trying to conform to make a guy like them. Um, or imposter syndrome. It doesn't just show up in adulthood. It's not just a corporate women thing. It starts young, um, that you're not good enough, that you are incapable of doing the very thing that you are dreaming or you envision yourself doing.
Mhm.
So I have spent so much time trying to pour back into my girls how beautiful they are. They say you need 7 positive affirmations for every negative thing you hear about yourself.
Oh,
And
wow.
when you think about just to kind of replace or negate that one negative. And when you think about all the negative they're getting all day, just think about the hypersexual images too that girls are bombarded with, um, and letting them know, honey, your worth is not in your lack of clothes or how tight or where your curves are or not. Your worth is not wrapped up in that. So I
Mhm.
spend a lot of time just building them up there. If and I don't have boys, I grew up with brothers, so at some level, I feel like I understand, uh, just kind of that life. I wanted
Yeah.
all boys, I ended up getting all girls. Ain't that something? Um, but having all girls almost feels like an assignment, like a
Mm.
special deployment right now, um, because it is tough. What we went through growing up is not what these girls are going through.
No, I mean, you just didn't have to your point when you think about, I was listening to something today and it was talking about faith. And that was the kind of the conversation. And it was, the message was more around like, you need to have the belief that's there, but you need to be working as well. But it was like underestimating that we do have a lot of faith in things we can't see. And some people want to
Mhm.
brush that away. But to your point, it is there. Let's just use COVID. Who's seen COVID? Who
Yeah,
has seen
what it
it,
looks
right?
like.
Or who's seen, but so to your point, when you, these images that are coming there, just because you're not recognizing them or how rapidly they're coming, that doesn't mean that it's not subconsciously there. So being aware of the subconscious mind is one part of it, which we didn't
Yeah,
necessarily have because we didn't, there was, we're dating ourselves here, but like when you tell kids now, like, yeah, I was out, yeah, like this how old I am. I'm before the internet. I'm before Facebook, right? Like this are
right.
all things we did.
MySpace.
Yes, we didn't have any of that. So you have all the, and then also as well, mistakes I think are amplified and move so much quicker that
Mhm.
even the thought of failure, I think, looks
Oh
different
my.
for children. It's so much
It's
different.
crippling. It's crippling for them.
Yes.
Because if you mess up now, it's
Everybody
captured
knows in
on
5 seconds.
film.
Yeah. It's
Yeah. I mean, just we had some students cooking on campus today, and they burned some cookies. But they said as soon as they noticed, I'm watching the video. As soon as they could see the oven was on fire, phones came out. Not go grab a fire extinguisher, not water. I mean, it was a kitchen fire, so maybe not water, but you know, phones.
that's their first reaction is
Phones.
to record it.
Yeah, and
It-
everything's documented. So you hear a lot about pressure. I read this book called I can't remember the title of. I'll find it in just a second, but it talked about the anxiety that young women are feeling right now,
Mhm.
and that book was eye opening. I'm so glad I read it. I'll find it before we finish this
Okay.
for everyone
Okay.
in the chat. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about, as you think about, you kind of, we're talking about top issues facing teens, right? Like, what do you think that are top issues that are facing women today, in your opinion, or even at least maybe in your line of work?
Okay, so I saw this affirmation. I get these affirmations on my phone
Okay.
that sort of refresh
Yeah.
like every two,
I
three
think I get
hours.
that. Is it the I am app?
Yes.
Yes, I
Did I
love it.
share it with you?
No, I
Oh,
think I
okay.
just happened to do it. It probably just dropped, probably
Okay.
because I text you that my phone knew it and just pulled it, right? Who knows?
Okay. Probably so, girl. We be hooked up. Okay, so this affirmation today was I am putting down my burdens and letting my soul rest
Mm,
today. And that just hit me um like a ton of bricks. And it reminded me of this episode of Harlem. I don't know if you started watching it
I
yet
did. I
on
watched it.
Prime. Okay, so they have an episode on there called was it Tired Black Woman?
Yep.
Um, and we have got to rest. We
Mm,
have got to pour back into ourselves. This grind culture of going, 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 and not taking time to restore, refresh, renew, replenish. It is wearing us out. It used to be black don't crack. I'll be seeing people sometimes, and I'm like,
it
oh
cracked.
no,
It
oh
cracked.
no,
Yes.
oh no.
Yes. Oh no, every
You
time
know,
I do these, I can see my bag so clearly, for sure.
yeah. Like we have got to. Um, what does the affirmation say? Rest is a revolution.
Hmm.
We have got to put just as much emphasis on being still, resting, drinking our water, minding our business. Like
Yep.
I feel like that we know as women, whether you black, white, don't matter. Women, we're gonna put in the work. There's never a question of us putting in the work.
Yep.
Um, we have got to rest.
Yeah, and it's
More than
interesting that you share that as the top issue, because I think what I find, to your point of this, what is glorified, and I know we're both women of faith. Is the way I see it is we have people that are very successful in a business setting. So people are elevating them because of how much money they have. So they're
mhm,
giving you advice about how they got their money, on your, and you're applying that on how to live. So absolutely, in business, there's a return on
Yeah.
investment, and we can quantify productivity, and we can do, as you know, this is, I'm talking this all day, right?
Yeah.
However, we're taking advice from people that do business really well, but may not live very well. So if you
Yeah.
sit up here with these, kind of these phrases that come out to your point of, I'll, grind till you die, or right, well, you will.
Yeah.
You will sleep when I'm dead. Well, those
Yeah.
are things that sound ridiculous when you can step out of it. But people that are really thinking that they have to sacrifice all of these things that are important to them to get here.
Mhm.
And I think we have to acknowledge, to your point, it's okay to want the same amount of money that someone has, or to admire their success, but really stepping back and defining what living well is, it is a
Yeah.
totally different conversation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I completely agree. So that's like I said, we never have to wonder about women putting in the work. We're gonna take care of our families. We're gonna do what we can. We're pressing more times than not. We have more women in college. We're getting advanced degrees more than men. Like, we are on that hustle,
Hmm.
um, and being given the freedom to do that. Not too long ago, I mean, just even in my mother's lifetime, she could not open a checking account without uh, a man's help. So we have come a long way, especially in the last 50, 60 years.
Hmm.
But just as much as we will hustle, we will also be hustling while having a heart attack.
Or having a mental or emotional breakdown.
Exactly. More so than men. Heart disease is an issue for us. We're not moving every day. I know that's something you and I talk about a lot, and are constantly sharpening each other in that area. So just pouring back into our health,
It's number
mental,
one.
physical, and our souls, our
Awesome.
spirit.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. I think that definitely will resonate with someone. And then your transparency of working on it. So, a couple of more questions, and I'm gonna turn it over to you for what you want to share. But I am curious about, you've shared kind of your journey professionally as a mother, also as a wife. I would love to hear, how being a wife shows up for you as a woman. And then I want to kind of move that into, like, maybe someone that's been a great mentor to you, and it can be in any facet of your life. But I'm curious. I want to make sure we touched on your role as a wife, because you mentioned that in the beginning, as you
Yeah.
describe yourself.
So I have the sweetest husband. He's just so good to me. He's so good to my girls too. I think, you know, having an opportunity to be married again, it feels like a second chance that God has given me to,
Hmm.
get it right, do it better, take the wisdom that I've learned from my first marriage, and really pour that into um, this grand opportunity with this amazing man. So, this is a first for me, being in um, a, a biracial relationship. So my
Uh-huh.
husband is white. And it's also a first for me that I am in a relationship where there are no gender roles.
Mm. How does that work out?
So I could come in and he's cooking.
Okay, this is
There is
different.
not an expectation for me to cook or clean, or the expectation for him to provide, um, which he does. Don't get me wrong; he makes good money. He's a very good provider, and it brings him great joy. But in terms of like gender roles, like around the house or laundry or sweeping or whatever,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
he is. I'm like, who is this guy? Um, so, because I came into, and I don't want to fault my ex-husband in this way. It was just very different. And
Hmm.
it was a role that I fell into as well. I came up in a household that had very specific gender roles. To this day, I have yet to cut a lawn. Um, because I had six brothers growing up. I didn't
Hmm.
have to do that.
Yeah.
Um,
But I think it's interesting you bring that up, because I find, and I'll speak for myself in my experience. Oh no, we can't not have light. Hold on, people. This how they know. This how they know it's real. Hold on, because Look here, this look, y'all can see
I'm
what
just
time
saying,
it.
you still look good in this light, though. And
Yes, but
speaking of,
we got to have some light over here. That's my other computer went down. But when we talk about gender roles, it's usually one sided, right? And I agree with you. Like it is both sides because I agree with you. Like I never take out the trash. I don't. Don't have never mowed a lawn as well. And that's not saying as a bragging, but when we talk about sharing gender roles, it's usually of what would stereotypically go for a woman. So it's interesting that for you to call that out because I don't think we always think about it that way as women, right? We want it on this way, but it's not necessarily. A lot of people want to have these relationships where it doesn't matter. It's like, okay, well, this is how that looks.
welcome.
Welcome. It's
Welcome
real.
to gender equality. Um, and then also, my husband is disabled.
Hmm.
So he is paralyzed from the waist down. And that definitely opened my world up to seeing um, the world in which we live through his lenses, which him being with a black woman and having black children opens up his worldview as well. Um, so just a few examples, like when we were going to the wedding, we got married in another state and the girls drove in a different car. I had just gotten a new car,
Hmm.
it's SUV. It's charcoal, so it looks black at night. Um, he was very, very concerned about the girls going across state lines in a black SUV at
Really?
night. He was with paper tags on
Oh, yeah.
top of it
Okay. Okay.
because I had just gotten the new car. So he was like, maybe you guys can just come in the morning, get up early. He was like, I don't want you all to be in a situation where if you get pulled over,
Hmm.
because those are the things. I mean, and, having been around a lot of attorneys and just people in law enforcement, those are things that people look for.
Yeah.
SUVs, driven by a black person, crossing state, out of state tags, paper tags. Like those are all um, markers that can become risk factors. And so I appreciated him for even like that wasn't something that I brought up. That was
Hmm.
something that he brought up. But then also, and I've shared with you, we just recently went through a refinance um
Oh, this situation was very interesting. Yes.
and we had gotten an appraisal with the first bank. So first appraisal came in so low that the bank kicked it back. Second appraisal came in higher, and that was the one that I saw. But it was super low to me. So much so that I was like, no, it's a no for me. I cannot in good spirit close this deal with you guys. Um, Talk to my husband about whitewashing the house. Can we whitewash? And if you are watching it, you're like, what is whitewashing? That is when you remove all semblance of color from your home. So family pictures, I got rid of my wigs, my hair care products, all the pictures of even my Asian babies. Like I got rid of all of them, figurines, art, all of it gone. We put up pictures of his family and his art. Um, and he was the one that showed up for the appraisal, not me. It jumped 24%. 24%. And for us, that was real money. So, just moments like that. And then things that we kind of, for me, I'm kind of in shock and awe about, we got pulled, he was speeding, got pulled over um, by the cops. I have never been on a police stop so short. We were, I mean, from the moment lights, see your license to the point where they let us go with no warning. I mean, he was speeding.
Mm.
No warning, no ticket. It was less than 5 minutes. Less than 5 minutes. Think about that. I've never been on a stop, and
Well, you
I
know
wouldn't
how
say
I feel. You know how I feel about this subject because we have very spirited conversations. And those that know me in real life know I'm very. Is opinionated the word you would use? What word would you use? I'm
I like
saying
Spirited.
Spirit is a good one. So I'll reserve that, but no, I'm not shocked at all, at all.
5 minutes. And he pulled
But
off,
this is the
and
world that we live in, and that's why I think we're
yeah,
having these conversations because I
right.
think, to your point, people. I don't want to say people make assumptions, but I think the more that we talk about these things, right, that we can. I don't think it's necessarily bringing light to it, as it is hopefully coming closer to solutions, right?
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, no, I'm
But
not shocked at all, though.
we
I wish
talked
I was
about
shocked.
that though. The
I wish I
the
was shocked.
rest of the way home. But then I get to, you know, uh, open my eyes to the lack of accessibility we have
Yes,
in our world. And so now, even like a step into a home is a barrier for him. Um, so I'm like, wow, why do we have steps to the front door? Like, it's not even
right.
steps. They exclude more people than they include.
Hmm.
And so now, especially on the east side of Oklahoma City, because we're getting into real estate development for this reason, we want to create um, barrier-free homes for people so that they can age in place. Because what we're
Mm-hmm.
seeing now with people on the east side of Oklahoma City, which is predominantly Black, they were able to purchase a home, but now people are aging to a place where at some point you have to realize that most of us will be disabled at some point in our lives.
Absolutely.
It may not be to the extent of paralysis, but everybody know a grandma or auntie that got a walker, uses a wheelchair, and so now you've got people that can't even access their entire home
Hmm. Oh, and
because
it
of their
totally.
disability.
Yeah, I mean, I have an uncle right now who, to your point, I would say was very like his masculinity and strength and things like that. So and he's very close to my father, so he's always around. But to see, him through this disability, and it's also words like disability. It checks
Mhm.
me of like even saying it or calling somebody disabled, right? Like
Right.
it's helped me realize it that way. If even like he'll come to Jonathan's games and where he has to sit or all of the like your language also to your point, the visual piece you actually pick up pretty quick when you're around somebody you
Right.
care about,
Right.
but it's the language that you check on your part in that.
Yeah.
Even just like you're like, no, he has a disability, he's not
Yeah.
a disabled person because he's actually very able and lives a very
Oh,
full
yes.
life, so
Yeah.
for sure.
That shit is joker. I can't help him with anything. The first time, the first time he met my sister, we were like out walking on the street, and she's like, "Well, Regina, is he gonna be okay?" Like, and I was like, "Girl, do you
Yeah,
see him worried
I was gonna
about
say
us?
Adam is crossing, literally going to be going
He's
across the
gone."
entire United States, literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, so then there's that. Like he's riding his hand cycle from California to New York starting in a couple weeks. I'm gonna be so sad
He's gonna
without him. I'm
be
gonna be okay.
you're gonna be motivated is what you're gonna be. So there's gonna
Very
be,
true.
yes, you'll be
I mean,
motivated.
we're both he's like, "You're starting this new job. I'm taking this, trip across the United States," and so we're just excited to have, like, our weekends together, and I know he's so fired up about touching people's lives and really interviewing other, people that have disabilities,
Hmm.
along the way, so
Awesome.
he's really excited about it. Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, I know you have had a full day and are giving, and we appreciate your time. So, actually, before we wrap up, like when you think about this series with influential women, what do you want either, whether it's women, girls, or even men that are watching this to take away from your life's journey or the work that you've done? What would you like to make sure that they get out of this interview?
You know, what keeps coming up in my spirit is each one teach one.
Hmm.
We all know a woman. We all know a young girl, excuse me, that is a life that has value.
Hmm.
And if somebody is within your sphere of influence, then I feel like you have an obligation to pour into them, and teach them, pour into them what you can. Tell them that they are beautiful. Plant those seeds. It will bear fruit. It will bear fruit, and especially in a professional setting, you have an opportunity um, to bring somebody up along the way. as you learn and grow and move and navigate, bring somebody up along the way. So I believe in sowing good seeds
Yeah.
in good ground, and women and young girls are very good ground to sow seeds in.
Awesome. Well, I personally just want to wrap up by thanking you for your
Thank
work. And
you.
I think beyond what you do, one thing that I'm trying to be very cautious of as well is realize that, especially as Black women, we came here as a commodity, right? And that we
Mm,
don't always pray
Battle.
just how we do things. So I say that, and that's why I thought you would be a perfect person for me to interview, is because of how you be, right? And how you show up and your being and just all the great things. I don't have enough time to list all of the adjectives that I would share, but I think truly a beautiful soul,
Thank you.
and someone that, to your point, definitely walks the talk and has impacted my life in such a way. And I just appreciate the joy that and light that you bring to every area. So thank you for being
Thank
an
you.
influential woman. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you for being an influential woman to me as well.
I appreciate that. All right. Well, this has been a fantastic time. We hope you not only enjoy this, but share this and let us know what you take away below in the comments. Take care.